radio, newspaper, TV. If people do not have access to this information, they are limited. Deaf people, of course, do not have access to the radio, but they can't get the same access on TV because there's no captioning. Newspapers may say some things positive about deaf, but they also share such negative perspective on deaf, and they feed into the negative connotations that people share about deaf people. There's an example I'd like to share. On one radio station, Star newspaper a newspaper article, there was a story about a man wooing a dummy for 3 months. What does that mean, dummy? Does that word mean that person doesn't speak, or that person is not intelligent? We don't really know that in the article whether they were speaking about a deaf person, but it's possible that they are. And that if they use this word within the newspaper, dummy, then the rest of Jamaica believes that's an appropriate term to refer to deaf people. Dummy is a very offensive term to the deaf community, by the way. The deaf community for many years, has shared with the newspaper and spoken to editors about the appropriate terms to use for their community members. But within the newspaper, they say they believe they are following appropriate and professional terminology, and they're ignoring the community's attempts to educate them as to the proper words to use. And this is not empowering to use words that refer to them in a negative context. And you know, there's no captioning on TV here in Jamaica. We have spoken about this repeatedly, but it is so crucial. You know, as messages are coming, warnings are coming from the government, hurricane warnings come on TV without captioning, the deaf people are without that information. With captioning, it is, you can find that the children are watching TV and they're learning reading as they go with the captioning on. Let's discuss legislation and legality. We need to protect the rights of these people. Jamaica has no national law that protects these people. People can be discriminated against based on the fact of the lack of the law. So here, in summary, are my recommendations. I would like an improvement made to the quality of teacher preparation. I would like a rights-based approach to educational provision. I would like the elimination of negative perceptions. I would like presentation of healthcare information shared in a way that it is understood. I would like words like dummy not used within the media. And I would like the provision of interpreting services to support our basic rights. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Richmond St. Anne. With the perfect blend of country charm and urban convenience, our modern, eco-friendly residential gated community hosts our exquisitely designed 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom patio home. The natural aesthetics complemented with 24-hour security and amenities for all is now available at $15.6 million. Visit us online at richmondjamaica.com. Richmond St. Anne, it's the place to live.
We have next as a part of our panelists, a long-standing advocate in the community for persons with disabilities and somebody that I have a great deal of respect and admiration for. And Gloria has served the community of persons with disabilities very well, and she herself is a role model for a lot of individuals within the community of persons with disabilities. And she understands fully most of the issues confronting persons with disabilities and also the deaf. She is the executive director for the Combined Disabilities Association, and she will be speaking to the issue of employment and education.
The goal of the education is high quality education that enables full communication access for children who are deaf, supported by an inclusive curriculum and competent bilingual teachers. Well, it is often said that the progress of a nation can be measured by the level of investment placed in the growth and development of its human capital, a position that well-thinking individuals would find difficult to rebut. Unfortunately, however, our history will show that whether by design or coincidence, there has been a selective discriminatory approach as to how this investment is placed, primarily on those whom the society believes will yield a high return of investment. The investment in persons with disabilities has traditionally been at a lower level, despite the fact that there has been noticeable increase in support over the past 3 decades. The traditional model of disability purports limited or no returns on investment from this group, while the economic model views this segment of the population as a drain on a country's resources. We have gone beyond that. We are now at the human rights model. This marginalized group of people whom we speak represent just under 10% of the country's population, or about 250,000 persons. Included in this figure are persons who are deaf, individuals who are often isolated from mainstream activities simply because they communicate differently and embrace 2 cultures, that of the hearing and the deaf culture, a language and a second culture not known to many hearing persons. But the investment we are speaking of today is education as it relates to the deaf community. The situational analysis of women and children in Jamaica quotes the Convention on the Rights of the Child as follows: investment in the development of a child shall be made not only because they represent a future economic return to society, but, and even more importantly for us, because it is a right. The 2007 Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability takes a rights-based approach and goes further to specify that persons with disabilities, including deaf persons, has the right to high quality of education. This rights-based approach is taken by advocates and persons who support the development of persons with disabilities. The goal, as I said before, is to achieve high quality education. But is this goal achievable in the short term? Maybe not. But we as advocates must convince our policymakers, legislators, managers of training institutions that deaf persons are entitled to a proper, and not just proper, high level quality education to equal those of hearing persons. This conviction must propel them to urgent action, making education at all levels more inclusive, available, accessible to the deaf. Then we will achieve this goal before the long term. So what can be done to expedite the process? 4 major areas face us, and which are paramount: the recognition of the Jamaican Sign Language as the natural and accepted language of the deaf person. The implementation of support system for early language acquisition for deaf children. Improvement in the quality of teacher preparation, as Ryan pointed out, and ensuring that deaf education is placed in policies and legislation of this country as a right, not just a social conscience approach. Why are these issues raised? Let us briefly examine each. Recognition of JSL as a natural language for persons who are deaf. Small countries, especially classified as underdeveloped or developing, still rely heavily on the dictates of first world or developed countries in designing our programs and deciding what is right and for different segments of our population. In Jamaica, there is no difference. Therefore, the use of the Jamaican Sign Language is not readily accepted, despite the fact that approximately 65% of it is made up of American Sign Language. The education system still promotes training and materials for deaf education outside of Jamaican Sign Language. Having a native sign language is similar to the US having an American Sign Language and the British having a British Sign Language. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities stipulate that deaf persons must have access to information and education in a language that is conducive to their learning. This convention was signed and ratified by Jamaica. How much of this document is being put into policy or is being acted upon? Did we just sign to make a statement, or so that history can remember us as being among the first to make this commitment? Or do we intend to support this global commitment that we made with necessary action to ensure the stipulations are put in practice? There needs to be urgent review of the way in which teachers of the deaf are trained to enter the school system, to impart to and interact with children who are deaf effectively. The present teaching curriculum needs to be adjusted to, among other things, give JSL more prominence.
Hello, transport operators. I am Sophia Campbell, President of the Route Taxi Association of Jamaica, RTAJ. I wish to personally thank you for your support during a difficult reorganizing process in 2010. It is now time to process your road license for the 2011-2012 licensing period. RTAJ has affiliated parish associations to submit your applications to the Transport Authority. Choose an RTAJ affiliate and get the service you know, trust, and deserve.
Patrick Brown's Midnight at Post Creek.
Looks like we're about to get ourselves disinherited.